Today on Awaken Activate, we're going to talk about some of the alchemy or the transubstantiation or transmuting or changing from one being into another. Also looking at some of the signs in nature that is showing us that we're about to make a quantum jump into the future. And some retouch on some of the topics that we've talked about recently as in energy and consciousness and the expansion of the gnosis that we have in each of those categories. This is some amazing stuff that is going on. So let's get into it. Caterpillar is born as a caterpillar. It's crawling around on the ground and then it's eating up leaves and whatever it needs to until it is full. And once it has filled and gotten its fill and is beginning to mature, it goes ahead and gets into a cocoon. And in the cocoon, it goes through what we know as metamorphosis. This metamorphosis usually happens around the springtime. So we'll see, usually rainy weather. Yeah, we say April showers bring May flowers. Also brings about the transformation and the butterflies. One thing I want you to pay attention to is that we have all three stages showing here. We've got the caterpillar still grazing, we've got the ones cocooning, and we have the butterflies. And notice how the butterflies stick around and are kind of watching over the ones in the cocoon and also the ones that are still caterpillars, all working together still as one, knowing that each becomes the one. Second example I want to bring forward is a frog. Frogs are born as a tadpole and they're in the water and need to be in the water. But as they mature, they grow their legs and not only can be in the water, but now can be on land. Another way of showing how things change as they mature. Now let's look at the compass, which we're used to seeing these directions on any map that we see, being the four: north, south, east, and west. And what has this now grown into? As in everything, it has doubled. Now we have north, northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, west, northwest, and of course, north. So instead of 4, we have 8. And today, now we have 16. Starting with north, north, northeast, northeast, east, northeast, east, east, southeast, southeast, south, southeast, south, south, southwest, southwest, west, southwest, west, west, northwest, northwest, and north, northwest. So we started off with 4, jumped to 8, and now to 16. And I know that we are all used to the 4 basic elements being fire, water, earth, and air. Well, let's see how that has changed for us today. How many of us were aware that there's actually 5 elements? Fire, earth, water, air, and ether. Ether being the spiritual realm or the unseen realm. Well, if you were already aware of that, gold star, you're ahead of the curve. And then from 5, we jump up to 8, being energy, fire, earth, wind, spirit, sound, water, and ether. Each of them having a symbol that represents each type of element. What if you were to find out that there's actually 10 known elements in today's gnosis? Fire, lightning, wind, water, force, earth, light, ice, darkness, and sound. Fire, of course, still being fire, lightning being the electrodes, wind being as like the spirit, water as it flows, force being how energy and the dynamics of energies works, earth being earth, light being intentions, ice is in cold, how things can have different structures based on the elements of weather, darkness, and sound as in frequency, the vibration and frequency and tenor, that also all these base things have to do with creation and what goes on around us. Just absolutely amazing. Before we can move out of the elements, let's look at some of the alchemy of the elements, out of darkness into light. Each of the elements, and this is just the 5 before we made the jump into the 10, is earth, air, water, fire, and spirit, and then you have the symbols for each. Earth meaning inherent characteristics, talents, and resources. Air being intellect. Water, emotion, intuition, and creativity. Fire, action, willpower, and courage. And spirit being the divine spark, the divine essence that's within all. As we can see here in this graph, 5% of our conscious awareness is all we use to perceive and interact with this realm in which we inhabit. 95% of it, subconsciousness, is submerged or hidden away. In this next one, it shows the conscious mind as being 10%, showing willpower, long-term memory, logical thinking, and critical thinking above water. The subconscious mind being 90%, being beliefs, emotions, habits, values, protective reactions, long-term memory, imagination, and intuition. Submerged and out of the way, unthought of or unused. This next graph actually breaks it down into 3 components, using the subconscious, conscious mind, and the unconscious mind. Subconscious mind is as what was just listed in the prior graph, but the unconscious mind is what runs your body, pretty much like on autopilot. So no longer just divided into 2, but into 3 sections. As in everything prior, everything is multiplying as we're getting to know ourselves more and more. Things are getting deeper and deeper. And the next level of consciousness is, of course, the super consciousness or the divine mind, where we connect back up and are back one with ourselves, and everything is within us. This brings the ultimate power and wisdom of the higher self, God's source, intuition. It's a knowing rather than believing. It's an understanding of the big picture. It's the infinite scalar capability beyond space and time. And it's also, it will never, ever, ever interfere with our free will. So how else has consciousness been affected? Well, let's start looking at the gates in which we go through in order to have our conscious experience, which affects our subconscious, and so on and so on. To understand the consciousness and how to program or reprogram our consciousness, we need to understand the gates and how these gates interfere or affect the way that we think and the way we perceive and how we interact with the realm around us. On the outer perimeter, we can see the 5 gates. The 5 gates being like the 5 senses: sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. It gives you the eye gate, the nose gate, the ear gate, the mouth gate, and the feel gate. Well, we can get stuck with what it is that we see, smell, taste, and perceive in that world into our carnal flesh and go into circles and program that into our subconscious. What we want to do is keep pressing through and go through the next set of gates, which there are 7, which is conscious, reason, imagination, the mind, the unconscious, subconscious, and consciousness, understanding those, our emotions, choice, and our will. Knowing that we always have a choice, we have free will over ourselves to be able to garner our emotions and our reactions, and bringing into our imagination things that we would love to see going on rather than things that may not quite be what we were looking for to experience. And being able to reason and being conscious of everything going on. And once we're able to master those 7 gates, there is 8 gates in the inner circle. And that is from prayer, reverence, faith, hope, worship, revelations, intuition, fear of God. And those gates are on the inner circle going from the soul man into the spiritual realm. So now you're in spirit. So you've went through the 5 gates from the outer perimeter, the 7 that are on the next level in, and the 8, and there's only 1 gate left to get mastery of. And that one brings you your first love, which is glory to God, back connected, and programming the subconscious from that higher perspective rather than doing it from the 5 senses and having it go in cycles to program or reprogram our subconscious experiences from that higher perspective in order to see the things that we would like to see come about in this place. Understanding these fundamental things about self and how our consciousness works is a paradigm shift and a life-changing event. As in everything, we start off with just 2, left and right. Left brain and right brain. The left in charge of logic, analysis, organization, administration, math and science, knowledge and facts, and detail. The right being in charge of emotional intuition, spirituality, interpersonal skills, art and music, belief, and the big picture. Here we have the 3 areas of the brain: the cortex, which is your intellectual tasks, the reptilian, which is your instinctual behavior, and the limbic system, which is the emotional behavior. Here we have the brain now broke down into 5 different sections. The first one being the frontal lobe for problem solving, emotional traits, reasoning, speaking, and voluntary motor activity. The second one being the temporal lobe, understanding language, behavior, memory, and hearing. The third being the brainstem for breathing, body temperature, digestion, alertness, and sleep, and swallowing. And the fourth one being the cerebellum for balance and coordination and control of voluntary movement and fine muscle control. And the fourth one being occipital lobe for vision and color perception. And last but not least, the 5th is the parietal lobe for knowing right from left, sensation, reading, and body coordination. And then let's jump to today. Actually, this isn't even all that is known of. I've got one more slide for you. But we have 15 sections now that are known and well known into science today of the breakdown of the brain. We've got the medulla of the pons, the temporal lobe, the hypothalamus, the lateral ventricles, the corpus callosum, the frontal lobe, the cerebral cortex, the central, the perineal, and the thalamus, and the occipital, and the cerebral, and the cerebellum, and of course, the brainstem. And many of us today are aware of the pineal gland and what that entails, as it sits very, very center of our brain, right between our eyes, hidden and tucked away, otherwise known as the third eye. It entails the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, being in complete balance, utilizing the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the brainstem, and the corpus callosum, and it shoots that oil down, back up, and ta-da! We're back into the center of those gates that we just talked about earlier. See how all of this ties in, and see as this time is going on, the quantum leaps that we're making into the understanding and the gnosis that we have here now today at our fingertips. Neuroscience study confirms speaking in tongues changes brain activity and blood flow. While critics may mock many Christians and assert the validity of speaking in tongues, and now they have the neuroscience study to back them up. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania took brain images of 5 women while they spoke in tongues and found that their frontal lobes, the thinking, willful part of the brain, which people control what they do, were relatively quiet, as were the language centers. The regions involved in maintaining self-consciousness were active. The women were not in blind trances. It was unclear which religion was driving the behavior. The images appearing in the current issue of the Journal of Psychiatric Research in Neuro magazine highlighted the most active areas of the brain. The images are the first of their kind taken during this spoken religious practice, which has its roots in the Old and New Testament and in the Pentecostal churches. The amazing thing is how the images supported the people's interpretation of what is happening, said Dr. Andrew Newberg, leader of the study team, which included Donna Morgan, Nancy Wintering, and Mark Waldman. They describe it, and what they believe is that God is talking through them, he said. Dr. Newberg is also the co-author of Why We Believe What We Believe. In the study, the researchers used imaging techniques to track changes in blood flow in each woman's brain in 2 conditions. Once as she sang a gospel song, and again while speaking in tongues. By comparing the patterns created by these 2 emotional, devotional activities, the researchers could pinpoint blood flow peaks and valleys unique to speaking in tongues. Ms. Morgan, a co-author of the study, was also a research subject. She's a born-again Christian who says she considers the ability to speak in tongues a gift. You're aware of your surroundings, she said. You're not out of control, but you have no control over what's happening. You're just flowing. You're in a realm of peace and comfort, and it's a fantastic feeling. Contrary to what may be common perception, studies suggest that people who speak in tongues rarely suffer from mental problems. And here are 2 images. The one that you see on the left is while singing a gospel song. You can see in the frontal lobe area where thinking and speaking is lit up dramatically. And the one on the right, speaking in tongues, you can see that other areas of the brain are lit up dramatically while the front is not. Amazing. I will link this article below so you can check out the rest of it for yourself. Never forget that you're a beautiful rainbow, and the chakra system has indeed added more to it. This graph I'm showing you here has 8 showing, but there's actually more. But if we start at the bottom, the first one is red, it's the root. Second one is the spleen, and it is orange. The third one is the solar plexus, and it is yellow. The fourth one is your heart, and it's green. The fifth one is your throat, and it's blue. The sixth one is like indigo, and it's your brow. The seventh one is your crown, and it's purple. And the eighth one is your soul star, and it is photonic light. How many of you guys remember the 3? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, heart, mind, and soul, body, spirit, and soul, conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. Everything was in 3s. Well, here we go again, and let me show you a graph where we have more added to our gnosis. Well, we have spirit, heart, body, mind, and soul. And if you see the interlocking circles, there's actually 13 spaces in there, which reminds me of Jesus and the 12 disciples. So we've got the rainbow flowing and moving, the vortex going, the circumcised heart, the renewed mind, and the 12 that are following the one head, all in one body, in one accord, as we're all going through this amazing quantum jump. There's so much going on right now, it's almost hard to keep up with it. From going through the changes that we're going through physically, just like I showed in the beginning, it's pretty natural, and we've got things in nature to show us this happens all the time. Even in the Bible, it said that Jesus went up onto the Mount of Transfiguration. So why do we think this couldn't happen to us when it was foretold a long time ago? Then we've got odometers, or north, south, east, west in the maps. Now we've got up to 16 different angles and degrees of which to look at on the compasses. And now we used to have 4 elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. Now that too has jumped up to 5. Then it went to 8, and now it is up to 10. Spirituality has changed. It's touched every religion. Everybody is waking up to their true self, realizing the rainbow within, our vortex that goes around us, how energy works, the consciousness also jumping from 2 to 3 and now actually up to 4. Don't forget the article in there, and the well-being that you have by allowing yourself to flow in the spirit. We're dual-natured beings. We are spirit and also flesh. Okay, let's have a quick recap before we move on to the last and final section on alchemy. In the beginning, we talked about how caterpillars go in our cocoon and come out as butterflies. We also talked about how tadpoles change into frogs. Are we in the time where mankind is changing, going from the corruptible into the incorruptible? Remember that when Christ was here, he walked up onto the Mount of Transubstantiation and he changed right there before his disciples. So it is very possible, with all the phenomena going on, that we're in the midst of something wonderful. We spoke about how directions, basic north, south, east, west, now has 16 different directions to choose from. So when you're looking at your compass now, you've got plenty to choose from. We also looked at how the 4 basic elements, earth, air, water, and fire, has now changed into 10 basic elements. We also looked at the brain, right and left paradigm, and how that has now changed into 16 different areas, and there's actually more. And then I showed you the inside of the brain with the pineal gland and the pituitary gland and all that. Everything is growing and expanding. Let's not forget about that article that talks about going and getting carried away in rapture in the spirit. You know, there's nothing like it. You want to know what it feels like to be an ecstatic, euphoric awareness? Get yourself in line with God. I'm not trying to preach to you. It's a spiritual thing. It's a connection. Call it your higher self, whatever. But when you're carried away in the spirit, you are in rapture. You are in an ecstatic, joyful, blissful state. You're conscious of everything around you. You're fully aware. At the same time, you are filled with such a peace and such joy. And it was scientifically proven that the blood flow is much better. They're not using the part of their mind to think or speak, and that they are less likely and not likely actually to have mental illness. Pretty interesting article, and remember, it's in the description box. We talked about the different levels of conscious awareness, and we also talked about all the different gates. Now we should all know how to get inside the inner court. And if we have any questions, rewind, go back, and look at it again. The answers are within us. Now let's get to the last section and look at alchemy. Now, as promised, we're going to discuss alchemy and how, by our nature, we are natural alchemists. As we breathe in and breathe out, our body sends out a frequency. We each have a designated thumbprint or signature to our frequency. Our thoughts, our voice, our heart, everything is sending out. From the heart is the toroidal field. Then we have our Merkaba, and then we've got the rainbow that is sending out energy and frequency all around us. As we breathe and our body moves, it is creating a dynamic of motion, putting therefore sound and frequency into the air, putting intention. So whatever's on our mind is coming out even through our sleep as we are breathing. So we should always want to be thinking on what it is that we would like to see in our life. What is healthy for us? What would be good for us? Because by nature, we are alchemists. We are constantly taking energy and transmuting it as it is not created nor destroyed, and moving it out to serve a purpose. Whether we're aware of it or not, it's still going on. Also with the subconscious. The subconscious mind programs what it is that we're interested in. These two things don't judge. They don't eat from a tree of good and evil and a tree of life. They have no reference point to that. You look at it, you watch it, it imprints it because it sees it as an interest of yours, and it will create the situation for it to come about for you to have the experience. Thinking, well, it doesn't think at all, but it is something that you would desire. Remember that God's desires of his heart is to do nothing but to lavish good gifts on his children. It's been that way since the beginning of time. It's our amnesia, our forgetting the power that we hold within. Many of us are stepping into our power, into our authority, and into our sovereignty. There's so many people that are getting into the healing modalities and things of that nature. By being in an energy healing modality, whether it be Reiki, QHHT, BQHT, or even the, I don't know what case from Everyday Masters calls his energy work. But see, energy has no limit of space or time. Candace had that breakthrough and brought it into beyond quantum healing. There is no distance. We can treat somebody across the country through a thought. We're getting ready to make that quantum jump anytime soon. But as energy healers, we are energy alchemists. Alchemist is somebody that takes one thing and changes it into another form. Can take something that had one purpose, maybe it's stagnant energy, and you're working on your client or working with your client, and you remove the stagnant energy. As the healer or the practitioner, as the alchemist, we take that energy onto ourselves. And then I would, used to in the beginning, I would go and earth it out. I don't anymore. I used to go out and send it with a new intention, a new purpose, a new design, new action. But now it's to the point, I just put it back to a neutral, just set it free. But when we understand the power that we hold within and understand that we've had this power always, it's just we forgot. We have forgotten the very sovereignty, power, authority, and gifts that have been bestowed upon us since the dawn of our coming here, created here, or however we got here. It doesn't really matter. And as we encounter other beings from other realms and things of that nature, you have to look at it like this. When they were writing old texts and they encountered beings that weren't quite like them, maybe they had better technology or something that would give them the impression of them flying around. Maybe they were flying around in their Merkaba. Have you flown in your Merkaba yet? Yeah, it's magical. So anyways, they didn't know how to describe it, so they called them angels, or from those from heaven came. And so when we look at what we call aliens today, that, we could say Pleiadians, and they're with the seven sisters. So that to me would be seventh dimensional. And when my husband and I went off and took a trip, we went through that machine that's between the fourth and fifth, which still don't know what to think of that. And the fifth realm, she told me it was Jupiter, which led me to believe when I woke up, I was able to associate it with that is now the fifth planet from the sun, meaning that I got to visit 5D Earth. So I got to take a sneak preview of the overlay that's just waiting to be unveiled for us. But we go to these different places and we meet these different beings, but the higher that we go, the more transparent they are. They can't hide anything and achieve such levels within their divineness. When you think of like archangels and things like that, they say that they surround the throne of God. Do they? Have you yet to meet a being that said that they've been in the presence of God? Besides having God within them and having a belief in God, they know that there is a creator. But do they really circle around God and sing praises and harps and sing holy, holy, holy to God Almighty? Let's really think about that for a little bit, because from what I understand, some of my guardians would be of the archangel rank. So what are they doing with me if they are surrounding the throne? And I do understand moving at the speed of thought. You could be simultaneously multiple places, and the flicker rate would be so fast that you would almost seem omnipresent. These are things that we're going to be looking forward to in the future. Back to alchemy. Sorry guys, didn't mean to birdwalk. This has been a really long video, but I needed to really touch base on a lot of things that may have been overlooked, or just some things that maybe people have questions about it. So I was a little more clear, coming from Christianity and going through the motions there, excuse me, having such extraordinary things come into my awareness starting approximately 23 years ago is when I became aware of these phenomena taking place. Does it mean they started 23 years ago? No. It just means that that's when I became consciously aware that something amazing was going on, something I couldn't quite understand. It's very left-brained. This is so far removed from my logical way of thinking, coming from an accounting background and all. So I'm sure you understand that. So now we're talking back to the metaphysical. We are naturally always converting energy into something else. I know that there is the physical labor from the sweat of the brow, making it into fuels and into electricity and things like that. But you see, even when electricity or fuel is burnt up, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It just is, and it will transfer and transform and transmute itself and go out and serve the next purpose. But today, you guys, there's so many that have gone through, that have walked this path out, that would be happy to make sure you don't get tossed around like we did. I mean, it's a mess. Just come up out of that grave as soon as possible. Now, you can't come out until you're ready. When you're ready and everything is frothed up and out and you're all purified and clean, you'll pop out of there and you will be a new creation. Some people call it the death of the ego. Yeah, you pretty much do let go of all of that. You pretty much let go of everything because there's really nothing here. Can you take anything with you when you leave? What is here that is so valuable? Because all the people eventually are going to go to where you're going anyways, right? And so anything of value, we will see again. So anyways, back to alchemy. Have you ever been in a grocery store and people that you don't even know, or any store for that matter, and they'll just walk up and start telling you everything that's going on with them, all their problems, everything, just start telling you? Well, my friend, that's probably because they can sense the energy of the alchemist that you are as a healer. Most healers are approached by people before they're even aware that they have the activation of a healer within them. All healers use alchemy. All of them use energetic alchemy. We are transforming stagnant energy and making it, like I make it back to neutral and send it out. Or if I have something I want to send it in intentions. But once you are linked back up or hooked back up or connected, there's an abundance of influx of energy that is filling you completely with light all the time. So you've got access. So it's not like you're needing to use what you can find around by sending intention into that. You really have an abundance. And everything is in flux. So understanding our subconscious and understanding energy and understanding how the elements all play a part into this also. If you have something going on and you are in your burial clothes, you're in the tomb, you've had your spiritual death, you're going through your judgment, white throne judgment, because even the Bible does say it's appointed unto man once to die and then to be judged. If you've had your spiritual death or you've had your spiritual baptism or you're in your judgment, okay? So just be glad you're getting it over with on this side and not on the other, because you could be in for, pretty good shock to have to turn around and come back because we don't want that anymore. A lot of people have come in here to assure that people are going to be graduating and moving on to more, because unlimited is unlimited. Possibilities, probabilities, continuously growth, expansion. So I keep bird walking. I'm so sorry. Because I'm touching on so many assorted topics in this one. And I'm going to play it as a premiere because I think it's important. People really want to hear this. It is a long one, but there's a lot of meat and potatoes in here, a lot of digestible information depending on what your upbringing is. If you're not tangled up in a religion and you're not being chastened on any of this stuff, then, I am not going to be the one to judge you. I'm not your judge. I'm your brother, sister, comrade, friend, buddy. So I'm not the one. I do not judge others. I will not judge my brothers and sisters. I just don't have it in me. Anyways, so you're a natural alchemist and earthing using. So I was going to say, when you're going through your process, you may feel heat. heat in areas or flushes of heat go through your body as you are going through what I call the distillation process, where any kind of energy that may be stagnant or something you may be holding on to, maybe it's some silly resentment from a childhood beef, and it's still embedded itself within you somewhere. Well, when you're going through this process, it's going to loosen all that stuff up and it will get lifted off of you. And as it gets lifted off, you'll feel lighter and lighter and you'll feel better and better. I have to say, most people think that their identity is ego. Ego is really not our identity. And the ego is not necessarily a bad thing. It's the ego when it becomes narcissistic, self-serving, selfish. I'll step on whoever to get whatever I want. That's the problem, because then you're breaking spiritual law. Having your personality, having your flair, and being you is amazing. We're not meant to be alike. We're not made that way. It's meant to be a very colorful experience here. But we can have a beautiful, awesome experience here without treading on another's sovereignty and allowing them to have their experiences. So healers, bad news. You're alchemists. That is by our nature. After I do a session, I will go out and, like I said, I used to earth it. Sometimes I'll swim and I'll meditate. Now, I'll still meditate. I'll just send out the whatever's picked up with, kind of clean it up, repackage it, and with the new intention, and just set it free, let it go. And then, of course, the photonic light that's being shined in the client, that's taken the place of any kind of blockages that are removed, is coming from the guides and me. But I'm more grabbing the stagnant stuff. I'm absorbing that onto myself. Have you ever walked by people and felt their pain or felt sad for no reason just because you walked past somebody? Well, that's another form or another sign to show you of the alchemist that you are, and in having the healing modality open up within you. Some people will start feeling hot, heated hands. Some people will start seeing lights coming out of, their head or heart, hands, fingertips. Some people will see sparkles. There's all different signs of showing that the alchemist in you, in the modality of healing, is activated. Otherwise, there are other specialties for alchemists, as in like alchemists and things like that, trying to change a precious metal or change a common metal into a precious metal. But see, now we're dealing with the physical realm. But healers by nature are alchemists. You are taking something and converting it, and you're removing something that is causing an unhealthy response within a human being's body, and you are transmuting it and sending it out and getting it out of the way for them. That's alchemy. If I've ever heard it, that is exactly what that is. There's really no higher calling than to help your brothers and sisters in any way that we can. And we're all by nature, each and every one of us are alchemists through the subconscious and through energy and the elements. We utilize the elements in the alchemy when we are transmuting the energy back out and setting it free. I like to swim in my pool, so I use water and earth and meditation and prayer, and then sending my intentions. So, these are just some things to look at, and I'm going to be diving pretty deep into the alchemy part of our being and our essence. We've covered the Merkaba, but we're going to get deeper into that, about activations. We're going to get more deeply involved in the divine consciousness or the super consciousness. I'm basically just touching the surface on these. I have deep gnosis on it, and I really want to share it. I just don't know how far to go and how much everybody's ready to digest. And And I know, I am not the only one that knows. I just know that. There's other ones out there besides myself that are getting this amazing information for us to share with each other. So, anyways, that's it for this one. I really hope that you understand, if you were brought up like I was in Christianity, what direction to go in order to get your rights to rule and reign over yourself. And I don't know if I said this earlier, this is a really long video, but 95 to 97% of mankind does not have the right to rule and reign yet. So what that means is, it doesn't mean they're not still, there's not alchemists, because they are. It doesn't mean they're not impressing into their subconscious and having experiences, because they are. It means that they're just not wielding their power yet because they don't understand their identity. As we understand our identity, we take responsibility. When we take responsibility, then we wield the power that we have responsibly, so it does not encroach on another divine being. And then we get the right to rule and reign over self. When people, read it in the Bible, it says, oh, you're going to rule and reign with Christ. They think they're going to sit on a throne with Christ and rule and reign over people. It's enough to rule and reign over yourself. If you only knew that right now, being carnally minded, that we are not mature enough to even rule and reign and gauge our own behavior, that, we've got a governor and we've got a teacher over us. That's on top of our guides, our help. We always have help, but we have to ask for it. Remember, you're sovereign. If you do not ask for help, there's a non-interference clause. So if you need assistance, you don't have to ask another person. Go in and enter meditation and prayers, or however your communication is, and ask, and you will receive what you are asking for. And on that, you guys, always share what you know and listen, so we can grow. And it's been another episode of Metaphysical. It's physical. We covered a lot on this one. You guys have yourself a great day. Peace. If you found any of the information synchronistic to an activation you may have, here's the Beyond Quantum Healing website. You can look into the classes and see if it's something you're interested in. Also, if you'd like a session, this is how you can contact me for having one of your very own.